the WNBA continues to get the kind of attention they shouldn't want. All right. Again, Colin Cowherd is making a point to talk about the WNBA again. He does it now multiple times a week, but only when it comes to one player, or in this case, one player and what it is the rest of the league is doing to her.
Tossing
what happens when the
gasoline
most
on the rumor
powerful
fire?
voice in sports media suggests trading the one player keeping your league relevant? That's exactly what Colin Cowherd just did. The fallout has been explosive. In a segment that shook the foundation of the WNBA, Cowherd floated the idea that maybe, just maybe, Indiana should trade Caitlin Clark. And just like that, what began as a fringe theory spiraled into full-blown outrage. Fans are furious, analysts are stunned, and the WNBA suddenly finds itself in the crosshairs of a national controversy. This isn't just about a hot take, it's about the tension that's been bubbling under the surface for months between Clark's meteoric rise and the league's uncomfortable resistance to it. The rookie sensation has shattered viewership records, sold out arenas, and dragged an entire franchise into the spotlight. And now, people are seriously discussing sending her out like damaged goods. Clark isn't the problem. She's the product, the league's most marketable name. The last thing fans want is to see her sidelined, muzzled, or worse, shipped out of Indiana like she's a roster experiment, but that's exactly what might be happening, and it's exposing everything wrong with the WNBA's power structure.
Got Colin Cowherd coming out and making some comments that I think are, in my opinion, pretty obvious, but if you're not ultra dialed into the league and you're just dialed into sports in general, I think these comments might surprise a lot of people. But he talks about Caitlin Clark and trading her.
When Colin Cowherd speaks, people listen. He's not just another media voice, he's a megaphone with national reach. And when he turned his attention to the WNBA and Caitlin Clark, the ripple became a wave. In one of his recent broadcasts, Cowherd casually suggested that Indiana might want to consider trading Clark. It wasn't a long-winded monologue. It wasn't shouted. It was calm, measured, and somehow even more explosive because of that. In a room full of gasoline, fans immediately took to social media, shocked that someone as influential as Cowherd would entertain the idea. The reaction wasn't just disbelief, it was rage. Why would anyone suggest trading the player who has single-handedly revived interest in the WNBA, who benefits from this? That's when people realized maybe the league itself is behind this shift. Maybe Cowherd was just voicing something already whispered in front offices and locker rooms. It's not the first time Cowherd has poked the WNBA hornet's nest, but this time felt different. It wasn't a critique of playstyle or stats. It was a suggestion that the league's brightest light might be better off somewhere else. Or worse, that the league doesn't value her enough to protect her. And that raises the question, why now? Caitlin Clark has brought unprecedented attention to the WNBA. Her draft night pulled in 2.45 million viewers. Her games routinely double or triple the league's normal ratings. Every arena she steps into becomes a sold-out event. Her jersey sales are through the roof. From a business standpoint, she's untouchable. But that's exactly the problem. She's too big, and some people in the league aren't comfortable with that. So Cowherd's suggestion, intentional or not, didn't just start a debate, it exposed a rift. There's a clear divide between those who want to build around Clark and those who want to manage her rise. And make no mistake, the idea of a trade isn't just about basketball, it's about power. It's about whether the league can tolerate a player who doesn't need their marketing machine to shine. If Cowherd was testing the waters, the reaction told him everything. Fans erupted, analysts pushed back, and suddenly the Indiana Fever's front office found itself under the microscope. Is this team really behind Clark? Or is it just tolerating her until the storm passes? Because here's the truth, even mentioning a trade isn't harmless. It plants a seed, it creates noise, it gives permission for others to explore the idea. And if that seed takes root enough, people start repeating it, suddenly the impossible becomes plausible. Manipulation works. That's how reputations are softened up before big moves happen. So no, Colin Cowherd didn't just float a rumor, he cracked open the door. If you want to see just how divided the WNBA is right now, look no further than the All-Star voting results. Caitlin Clark ranked first among fans, third with the media, and yet somehow landed ninth among her fellow players. Let that sink in. The woman responsible for doubling viewership, selling out arenas across the country, and generating more buzz than the entire league combined, barely scraped into the top 10 when her own colleagues had a say. That wasn't a coincidence. It was a message. From the outside looking in, it reeks of jealousy. But inside league circles, it's being disguised as respect for tenure or protecting the locker room. The narrative being spun is that Clark hasn't earned it yet, that she's still a rookie, that her stats don't warrant the hype. But let's be honest, that's not why she was ranked ninth. This wasn't about her game, it was about her. Players who've been in the league for years see someone walk in and immediately become the headline. The merchandise, the face of every commercial. That stings. But instead of acknowledging that Clark is bringing them all more attention and better paydays, many have chosen to gatekeep the spotlight. That All-Star vote wasn't about basketball. It was a silent protest, a political statement. Disguised as a ballot, the irony here is impossible to ignore. For years, WNBA players complained that the league wasn't doing enough to promote them, to support their brands, to elevate the game. They pointed fingers at sponsors, media outlets, even fans saying the system was broken. And now that the system finally has a golden ticket in Caitlin Clark, those same voices are slamming the door on her momentum. What happened to solidarity? What happened to growing the game together? Clark's presence didn't take anyone's opportunity, created new ones, bigger crowds, national TV slots, private jets, but instead of embracing her, many players have chosen to downplay her rise. That's not just short-sighted diets, self-destructive. Clark didn't ask to be the face of the league. She just showed up and did what she's always done: hoop. She carried Iowa to national prominence, broke records, and now she's doing the same in the pros. The fan vote proves people want to see her. The media vote acknowledges her impact, but the player vote that reveals something deeper. It reveals resentment. And it's not just petty, it's risky. Because the same fans who voted her number one are the ones filling arenas. They see what's happening. They hear the boos, the cold shoulders, the weird fouls that go uncalled. They see her get double-teamed every night by players who pretend she doesn't belong in the All-Star game. The truth is, this isn't about basketball skill or team dynamics. It's about power, pride, and the old guard refusing to pass the torch. And the All-Star results were the clearest signal yet that the league is at war with its own future, one passive-aggressive ballot at a time. When the Indiana Fever announced Stephanie White as Caitlin Clark's new head coach, most fans didn't think much of it. But for those who've been paying close attention, the move raised immediate red flags. This wasn't just any hire, it was a strategic placement. And for Clark, it felt less like a fresh start and more like a carefully orchestrated trap. Let's rewind for a moment. Stephanie White isn't new to the WNBA. She's been around, she's coached, and she's made headlines before, none of which painted her as a protector of young stars. In fact, during one of Clark's most physically punishing games, it was White who stood silently on the sidelines while Clark got poked in the eye and battered from every direction. There was no outrage, no strategic adjustment, not even a challenge called, just a passive acceptance of the chaos. And now, that same coach has been handed the keys to Clark's development. It doesn't take a conspiracy theorist to see the setup. Since White's arrival, Clark's minutes have been inconsistent. Her late-game presence, spotty, and her role in the offense, unclear. The rotations feel random, the strategy outdated, and the message unmistakable. This team isn't being built around Clark, it's resisting her. Coaches are supposed to elevate talent, not neutralize it. Yet under White, Clark is being managed like a liability instead of a franchise cornerstone, and the excuses don't hold water. We keep hearing phrases like system fit, development timeline, and team identity, but fans aren't stupid. They know coach speak when they hear it. What's really happening is a systematic effort to dull Clark's impact, to put her in a corner and make her earn a spotlight she already owns. You can see it in the body language on the bench. You can hear it in post-game interviews where praise is tempered and blame subtly assigned. You can feel it in the way Clark is subbed out during crucial moments, only to watch less impactful players stay on the floor. It's not about development, it's about control. And this isn't just hurting Clark, it's hurting the team. The Fever have a generational talent on their roster. And instead of maximizing her skill set, they're treating her like a rookie project. It's not just inefficient, it's insulting. The idea that someone who's already brought millions of dollars, millions of viewers, and national attention to your franchise still has to fit the system is absurd. The system should be bending to fit her. Fans see it, commentators are starting to call it out. Even casual viewers notice when a star player is getting treated like an afterthought. And if the goal was to humble Clark, the plan is backfiring because all it's doing is spotlighting the insecurity and dysfunction inside the franchise. Hiring Stephanie White might have looked like a coaching decision on paper, but in reality, it's beginning to look like an inside job away to sideline a rising star under the guise of professional development. And the message is clear. In this league, you don't shine too bright without consequences. Before Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, the league was struggling to maintain consistent viewership. Games averaged around 300,000 to 400,000 viewers. Merchandise sales were modest, and media coverage outside of niche circles was minimal. The WNBA had loyal fans, sure, but it wasn't a mainstream spectacle. Then Clark arrived, and the numbers didn't just improve, they exploded. Her draft night alone pulled in 2.45 million viewers, an all-time high for the WNBA. Suddenly, national outlets couldn't get enough. ESPN couldn't stop airing highlights. Social media became saturated with her step-back threes, no-look passes, and record-breaking performances. She transformed from a college sensation into the most valuable rookie the league had ever seen, both on and off the court. Games featuring Clark consistently break the million-viewer mark, more than doubling the league average. Tickets to Indiana Fever games sold out instantly. Road games became headline events, with opposing teams benefiting from packed arenas just because Clark was in town. Her jersey flew off shelves nationwide, often selling out within hours. And her A-tier, $128 million deal with Nike. That sealed the deal. Clark isn't just a player, she's a brand. And yet, despite being the league's most bankable asset, she's being treated like a temporary trend. From suspicious benchings to a lack of marketing focus to outright trade speculation, it's as if the WNBA doesn't quite know what to do with her? Or worse, they know exactly what they're doing, and it's deliberate. This isn't just bad management type business malpractice. Clark is the WNBA's economic engine right now. She's not just generating buzz, she's generating income. Fans are spending, sponsors are buying in, and broadcasters are paying attention. The last time the league saw this kind of cultural penetration was never. Clark is the moment, and pretending otherwise doesn't change that fact. During the brief period she was out with a quad strain, viewership dropped by 52%. That number alone should have silenced every critic, every benching apologist, every coach claiming she needs to adjust. Because clearly, it's not just her game, people are tuning in for it's her presence. She is the WNBA's biggest draw, and there's no debate. Yet instead of amplifying her, the league appears to be slowly muting her. They call it team balance, long-term growth and development, but fans can see through the jargon. This isn't a controlled burn, a quiet attempt to sand down the sharp edges of her popularity, until she fits into a mold that doesn't threaten the league's structure. But here's the danger. You can't downplay a cultural phenomenon without consequences. If the WNBA continues to ignore the gold mine they're sitting on, they risk losing not just Clark, but the entire surge of momentum she brought with her. And momentum like this doesn't come around often. You either ride the wave or get buried beneath it. Caitlin Clark's biggest problem isn't her jump shot. It's that she doesn't fit the WNBA's current aesthetic. She's not gritty in the approved way. She's not flashy in the corporate curated way. She doesn't play the game of personality, politics that has defined much of the league's branding over the past decade. She's just ... Clark, a Midwest kid with a lethal jumper, a quiet fire, and a national following that the league didn't create, but can't seem to fully embrace either. And that's the problem. The WNBA has spent years crafting a particular image: edgy, activist, tight-knit, communal. And suddenly, here comes Caitlin Clark, a white, soft-spoken, team-first assassin from Iowa who doesn't fit the mold. She doesn't play into the drama. She avoids headlines unless they're about her play, and she has a fan base that extends far beyond traditional WNBA circles. To many fans, she's refreshing. To some within the league, she's disruptive. The league wants to sell unity. Shared spotlight, no one above the team, but Clark is above the team, at least in terms of impact, and that puts the WNBA in an identity crisis. Do they embrace the superstar model like the NBA did with Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron? Or do they keep pushing for a horizontal hierarchy where no single player becomes the face of the product? Right now, they're choosing the latter, and it's costing them. Instead of building the brand around her, they're doing PR gymnastics to make it seem like she's just one of many. Coaches and media use words like system fit, team culture, and development curve as shields. They praise her in public, but bench her in private. The league features her in promo reels, but won't put her at the center of its marketing. It's a polite form of resistance. Sand fans aren't buying it. Clark represents everything the W says it wants: popularity, media coverage, and financial growth. But she also represents a shift in control. Her popularity didn't come from the league's marketing department. It came from fans. From college games that went viral, from highlight reels shared millions of times. And that makes her dangerous because she doesn't owe her rise to the W. She doesn't play their game. She plays her game. And that independence makes her hard to manage, hard to mold, and impossible to silence. So the league does what insecure institutions always do. When faced with a powerful outsider, they try to shrink her, to sand off her shine until she blends in with the rest. Not to elevate the league, but to protect the status quo. That bright is that everyone notices. Fans notice, broadcasters notice, even the casual viewer notices. And they're asking, why is the one player everyone came to see being hidden in plain sight? The WNBA doesn't have a Clark problem, it has a leadership problem. Because instead, and while they hesitate, the moment is slipping away. What happens when basketball decisions start sounding more like campaign strategies? When press conferences feel like press spin, that's exactly where Caitlin Clark finds herself trapped in a political game dressed up as player development. The decisions surrounding her playtime, her role, and even her place in the team's future aren't being made based on talent or performance. They're being made based on control, optics, and keeping the internal power structure intact. Let's get something straight: Clark isn't playing badly. Sure, her shooting percentages are down, but that's expected when you're adjusting from college to the pros, especially when you're being swarmed with double teams and targeted every night. Despite all that, she still leads in assists, draws defenders out to half court, and creates space and opportunities no one else on her team can. In short, she's doing more with less, something only elite players manage. And yet, somehow, she keeps getting benched in crucial moments. The reasoning, vague coach speak: we're working on rotations. She needs time to develop. We're managing minutes. But those lines are wearing thin, because when the team is down by double digits and Clark is sitting while bench warmers stay in, it doesn't look like development. It looks like punishment. This isn't about wins and losses. This is about narrative control. The front office and coaching staff seem more focused on maintaining their image than maximizing their talent. And Caitlin Clark, with all her popularity, influence, and independent rise, disrupts that balance. She doesn't fit their mold, so they've decided to force her into ITVN, if that means sabotaging their own season in the process. What's even more bizarre is the disconnect between how the public sees her and how her team treats her. Outside the franchise, she's a sensation. Inside, it's like she's just another player riff, not a problem to solve. And this isn't just about her teammates or coach. This is about the entire infrastructure, from the general manager to the league office. The message being sent is clear: we'll use your name to sell tickets. But don't expect to lead. It's a dangerous game they're playing, because every time they sideline her under the guise of team development, they're telling the fans that their investment doesn't matter, that the person they came to see isn't important, that the brand is more valuable than the player. But here's the catch: there is no brand without Caitlin Clark. She is the product right now. Every time she sits, the ratings dip. Every time she's benched, another fan turns off the game. This league has begged for attention for years. Now that they have it, they're treating it like an inconvenience. The playbook they're running isn't about basketball, it's about politics. Protect the hierarchy, keep the power structure safe, and if a rookie upsets the balance, bring her back down to earth, no matter the cost. But the fans see it, and they're not playing along. Basketball has always been a game of runs, rhythm, and referees. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark, the whistle has become something else entirely, a tool of suppression. Night after night, fans watch her get bumped, hacked, and outright shoved with little to no calls. And while physicality is part of the game, it's the inconsistency and the obvious double standard that's making people question whether Clark is being officiated fairly or politically. Let's call it what it is. Clark doesn't get the star treatment, and that's bizarre considering she's the biggest star the league has. This isn't about entitlement, it's about equity. Because while other top-tier players draw soft fouls for minimal contact, Clark has to absorb body checks, eye pokes, and elbows just to get to the remand. Still hear silence from the whistle. It's not just a missed call here or there, it's a pattern. Analysts have compared it to how Shaquille O'Neal was refed in his prime. He was so dominant, so physically overwhelming, that refs seemed to let defenders beat him up rather than blow the whistle every time. Clark faces a different version of that. She's not overpowering physically, but her gravity on the court warps the game. Defenders are glued to her the second she crosses half court. She gets double-teamed before the ball even touches her hands. And still no calls, there's an unspoken rule forming. Make Clark earn everything, including basic respect. But why? She's not out there showboating or whining. She plays hard, takes hits, and keeps going. So why is she treated like a rookie, with no name, instead of the face of the franchise, and quite honestly, the league? Even broadcasters are starting to comment on it mid-game. You'll hear them hesitate before saying, "That looked like contact," or "Clark's not getting the same whistle tonight." They know something's off, but they're trying not to set off alarm bells. But fans have no such filter. Twitter lights up every time Clark takes a hard foul with no call. Comment sections explode when she's knocked to the floor and gets nothing but silence. People are watching, and they're angry. The inconsistency doesn't just affect her, it affects the game. When players know they can rough up a star without consequence, it changes the strategy. It emboldens defenders to play dirtier. It sends a message to other teams: go ahead, be physical, the refs won't stop you. And that creates a dangerous environment, not just for Clark, but for the integrity of the sport. Officiating should never be a storyline, but with Clark, it's become unavoidable. Every no call, every shrug from a ref, every foul that mysteriously gets overlooked adds to the growing theory that this isn't oversight. It's orchestration. This isn't just missed calls, it's a slow suffocation of a superstar using the silent language of the whistle. And fans aren't imagining it, they're witnessing it in real time. The question is no longer, is this fair? The question is, how deep does this go? Let's play out the scenario that no one wants to admit, but everyone's beginning to whisper about what happens if Caitlin Clark decides she's had enough. What if she walks into the front office, tired of the benchings, the politics, the silence from referees, and the coaching carousel of passive-aggressive decisions, and says, "I want out"? The answer is simple. The WNBA doesn't just lose a player, it loses the centerpiece of its entire momentum. Clark is more than just a rookie sensation. She is the gravitational force pulling in casual viewers, skeptical sports fans, and major media attention. ESPN doesn't lead with WNBA clips for fun, they lead because Clark is in them. When she misses a game, ratings nosedive. When she plays, Twitter explodes, merch flies off shelves, and every sports show suddenly finds time for the W that's not normal. That's a movement. If she were traded, or worse, if she demanded out, the blowback would be immediate and catastrophic. Indiana Fever fans would be devastated. Neutral fans who tuned in just for her would lose interest. And the league, after spending years begging for relevance, would look completely out of touch. Because no matter how they try to spin it, there's no world where losing Caitlin Clark is a good business decision. It's not just about stats or highlights, it's about timing. Clark arrived at the perfect moment when women's sports were finally gaining serious momentum, when TV deals were expanding, and when fans were hungry for a new face to rally behind. She didn't steal the spotlight, she became it. And now the league seems hellbent on dimming that light, as if her success is somehow a threat instead of a blessing. Imagine her in Las Vegas, playing alongside established stars in a system built to win. Or in New York, lighting up Madison Square Garden under the brightest lights. Those cities wouldn't bench her. They wouldn't fight her presence. They'd build around her, and the WNBA would thrive as a result. But if she stays in Indiana and continues to be treated like a misfit puzzle piece while the league shrugs and calls it development, then eventually she'll have no choice but to leave. And if that day comes, the W will lose more than a player. It'll lose its best shot at becoming mainstream. This league tied its future to Caitlin Clark's star power, whether it admits it or not. They didn't build her, but they benefited from her, and now they're acting like she's disposable. That's not just insulting, it's dangerous, because stars like Clark don't come around often. And if the WNBA keeps playing this game of quiet sabotage, it won't be Clark who loses. It'll be the league that let a generational talent slip through its fingers, all because they were too afraid to let her shine. Caitlin Clark didn't ask to carry a league. She just showed up, played her game, and brought millions of new eyes with her. She filled arenas, broke viewership records, and injected a level of buzz the WNBA has craved for years. But instead of building around her, the league seems intent on boxing her in through questionable coaching decisions, inconsistent officiating, and even whispers of a trade. And now, thanks to Colin Cowherd's bombshell statement, those whispers have become impossible to ignore. The fans see it. They hear the silence from the league when Clark gets blindsided. They see the mismatched rotations, the political benchings, and the all-star snub from her own peers. It's no longer subtle. It's coordinated. If the WNBA keeps this up, it risks more than just losing Caitlin Clark. It risks losing the trust of its new audience. The people who came for her won't stick around to watch her get torn down. This isn't just mismanagement. It's self-sabotage with a scoreboard. And if Clark walks away, the fans won't blame her. They'll blame the system that couldn't recognize a generational gift even when she was lighting up the court right in front of them.